Ladies and gentlemen, very special guest joining us now at this really crisis moment in our country. He just finished organizing and putting on his party's convention, which by any measurable standards, if there are measurable standards in a pandemic, was quite great. And we're going to talk a bit about what's going on with the RNC right now, as well as some of the other crises that we're facing. The chair of the DNC, the Democratic Party, joins us here on Make It Plain, Tom Perez. Tom, how are you this morning, buddy?
Good morning, Mark. It's always a pleasure to be with you and all of your listeners and viewers out there. These are challenging times. And it's to watch the alternative reality of the Republican convention is just mind-numbing. We've just crossed 180,000 deaths from coronavirus. Today, another terrible jobs report, over 1 million new claims for unemployment benefits, Depression-era unemployment levels. We have the situation in Wisconsin and a president and a Republican convention that just continues to add gasoline to the fire. We have a climate crisis. You see another hurricane coming. You see the fires in California. And, these 4 crises and no plans for any of them. The suffering, the human suffering. They're creating an alternative universe out there, Mark. You had the president's economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, on at the convention talking about the coronavirus in the past tense. 180,000 deaths. We have no plan. Other countries are starting to put it behind them. We're not. And you just see in every situation, you see in Wisconsin, I have great respect for what the Milwaukee Bucks did yesterday, really putting principle over the relative triviality of playing basketball right now. Everybody else around there our convention understood that we had these crises and we had plans for everything. We have a vision for including everyone. This president doesn't have a plan. They quite literally, that's not a opinion. They announced there's no platform. The platform is whatever Donald Trump says. So we've got a lot going on, and we just have to make sure everybody votes, because right now we are at a really huge inflection point in our democracy, and the way to fix things is to get everybody out there voting.
Let's begin with chronologically, the latest human crisis, and that is this hurricane. I saw you did tweet your concern about the victims, Tom.
Absolutely. And, again, we're very early right now in the hurricane season, and we already have so many challenging situations. And then you look at the fires in California. And again, the president doesn't want to help because California is a blue state. We are the United States of America, Mark, the United States of America. Joe Biden said last week, I will be the president for everyone, not just if you voted for me. We need a president who can unite us. The climate crisis is real. We see it in so many ways, shapes, and forms. And what do you hear about it from this convention? Nothing. No plan. A lot of happy talk about all these things. A lot of happy talk about healthcare. I don't know if you heard the president's press secretary saying the president stands behind Americans with pre-existing conditions. No, he's got a knife in the back of people with pre-existing conditions. So, the list of lies is endless. The alternative convention is endless. This climate crisis and the Hurricane Laura and other hurricanes that are already building. We need a president who gets it, who can lead us through the climate crisis, not deny the climate crisis.
No, you're absolutely right. And they're not addressing it at all. We also see, obviously, what's going on in Wisconsin, where the Democrats just left virtually, really. The case of Jacob Blake, and now an alleged gunman who is believed to have actually been at a Trump rally. Um, Tom, I wonder, do you think that Trump relishes in this kind of chaos to try to gin up the most extreme part of his base? Do you think that's what's going on here?
Well, I mean, chaos is Donald Trump's middle name. Chaos is his currency. Division and distraction are his currency. Democrats practice the politics of addition. You know, we welcomed everyone into our Democratic Party tent, whether you voted for a Democrat last time or not, whether you've ever voted for a Democrat. We believe that America's at its best when we're all in this together, when we are working together to fix problems. That Barack Obama did that so effectively in 2008. Si se puede. Yes, we can. And here we are again. Donald Trump won in 2016 by dividing this nation, putting the fear of God into people. And that's the only way he can survive. He wants people to be scared. He wants people to go to the ballots with fear. Joe Biden and Democrats are putting hope on the ballot. We can get through this coronavirus. We have a plan to get through this coronavirus. It starts with federal leadership. We have a plan to build back the economy even better. It starts with fixing the coronavirus, by the way, fixing the pandemic. We have a plan to bring us together in the spirit of Dr. King and John Lewis and Elijah Cummings. And it starts with not throwing gasoline on the fire. This president violates the Hippocratic oath of policymaking. First, do no harm. He loves to do harm. He wants everyone to be scared. And that's just not who we are. We need leadership that can bring us together. I'm sick of the tweeter in chief. I want a problem solver in chief. I want a consoler in chief. American people want a uniter in chief.
I may not be an objective person, but I want to say this as objectively as possible. The messages we heard at the Democratic convention last week were really kind of messages, Tom, of warmth. I mean, even people speaking were telling their stories, telling human stories of warmth and emotion, and obviously some pain, redemption and solution. Looking at this other convention, man, it's a lot of fire and brimstone and screaming. I mean, I think even the most objective person can see that.
Well, it's also, it is a convention of subtraction. This president does not want to be the president of all of the United States. He wants to be the president of a very narrow and extreme subset of this country. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were very clear. We want to be everybody's president. We want to work to bring people together. People are really sick and tired of the division. They want a leader who will unite us. People want a leader who will get us out of this crisis. The reason they're not talking about the crisis this week of coronavirus is because they have no plan. The reason they're not talking about an economic recovery is they have no plan. I mean, it is remarkable, and that's the most polite word I can think of, that Larry Kudlow talks about the coronavirus in the past tense. We just crossed 180,000 deaths. We just had another 1 million plus first-time claims for unemployment benefits. Do you know how many times that happened under Obama and Biden? 0. Now it's happened here something like 15, 16, 17 weeks. I forgot the number because it's become so high. The only president with a worse jobs record in the last 100 years than Donald Trump is Herbert Hoover. And again, I defy anyone watching this to go fact check me. Every president since Herbert Hoover has presided over net job growth in our country until Donald Trump. And he's millions of jobs in the hole. He inherited an economy from Barack Obama and Joe Biden that was humming along. We had made so much progress, the longest uninterrupted streak of private sector job growth in our nation's history. And he's blown it. And they are in denial. Everything they do is denial. Oh, everything's fine. The happy talk is off the charts in this convention. Oh, everything's going fine. No, it's not. People are suffering. People are dying. People are dying on the streets. You've got we don't know all the facts, but what you have said, Mark, about this 17-year-old boy, young man who, is a Trump supporter who comes to and shoots peaceful protesters. My God, it should come as a surprise to no one when you have a president who fans the flames of unrest. It should come as a surprise to no one that hate crimes are on the rise. It should come as a surprise to no one that you will have vigilantism from folks on the far right. And this president does not ever call it out. We need a change in leadership, period. Hard stop.
I want to just go back to jobs for a minute. You're a former labor secretary. Tom, it also doesn't seem to me that if somehow miraculously, they said that last night, Joe Biden doesn't think they're miracles, America's a place of miracles, whatever. But if it were to end, I don't see through Trump, Kudlow, anyone else, any qualifications or ability to build the jobs economy back. I just don't, I don't see that happening. Even if COVID were to end, that overnight, all of these lost jobs would be restored. You need a plan for something like that too, don't you?
And this president has had 3.5 years to implement, for instance, an infrastructure plan. Infrastructure needs in this country are overwhelming, and they present a remarkable set of win-win-win opportunities. Win for workers, creating good middle-class jobs, win for communities where these jobs are created, wins for our environment, because infrastructure investments can enable us to address climate change issues as we build a clean energy infrastructure across this country, building jobs, addressing our environmental needs. What has this administration done in 3.5 years? Nothing on that. Other than turning the clock back on so many issues involving environmental regulation. He is in the pocket of the industry. He's still a climate denier. You can't have a president who solves the climate crisis who is a climate denier. So we know what we're going to get in that. So again, as someone who spent a lot of time on job creation as your labor secretary, this president was handed an economy that was moving in the right direction. The pace of job growth slowed under Donald Trump, notwithstanding what he will tell you. You look at the first 2-3 years under Trump, and you look at the last 2-3 years under Obama, there were more jobs created in the last 2-3 years under Obama than there were in the first 2-3 years of Trump. But he'd have you believe he was the first president in American history to create jobs. And now he is in company with Herbert Hoover. There are something like 4 or 5 million jobs net that have been lost under Donald Trump's watch. And he has no plan to fix it. That's the problem. That's why, folks, I keep coming back to voting, Mark, because we must get everyone out there to vote. Make a plan. Go to iwillvote.com. Wherever you live, wherever you're watching from, if you go to iwillvote.com and type in your name and your zip code, you can get all of your information about where to vote, whether you're registered. If you're not, easy to register. You can just keep clicking on this website and you can get all the information you need. And remember, in just about every state, November 3rd is the last day to vote. It's not the first day to vote. Vote early if you can. Vote in person early if you want. If you want to vote on election day, we're going to work hard to make sure you can do that. But make a plan. And don't start making a plan on November the 2nd because it might be too late. Make a plan today.
Yeah. Speaking of a plan, Tom, I'm having anxiety attacks about the Postal Service and mail-in ballots. Can you make me feel any better?
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the reality. The reason you're having anxiety attacks is because this president can't win on the merits. If everyone out there who votes exercises their right to vote and their votes are counted, Democrats win at great scale. So the president is trying to suppress the vote. This is voter suppression on steroids. But you know what, folks? We knew this was coming. We saw it coming. We've been using every tool in our toolbox, and we're making up new tools so that we can help even more. Again, litigation. We've won a number of cases, whether it was Wisconsin in April, whether it's Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Minnesota. We have been going to court, and the we is not just the DNC. It's the entire Democratic ecosystem, our partners like Eric Holder and Stacey Abrams and other organizations. So we've been very aggressively filing suits where necessary and defending suits, because there's a lot of bogus suits that the Trump folks are trying to bring. Organizing. A huge part of what we're doing is organize. Mark, we won that Supreme Court race in Wisconsin in April. You know why we won that? We out-hustled them.
Yeah.
Had 10 times more people vote absentee in Wisconsin in that race. And you know what? We were running program. We were training people, teaching them, here's how you vote absentee. Make sure you do it early. We went into court. We got a remedy from the judge that enabled every vote that was, every ballot that was postmarked by Election Day to be counted. That enabled over 90,000 voters who would have been otherwise disenfranchised to have their votes counted. Again, to remind your viewers and listeners, in 2016, we lost Wisconsin by about 21,000 votes. So we enfranchised over 90,000 voters, and we're seeking the same remedy for November, and I'm confident we will get that. I mentioned iwillvote.com. That's run by the DNC. We have fortified that. So you can go to that and make sure that you're registered to vote. You can register just by going onto this website. We're working with local authorities and others are doing the same to make sure there are more drop boxes so that you don't have to rely on the Postal Service. And thanks to Speaker Pelosi and others, we are holding the Postal Service accountable, and we will continue to do that. I have great respect for the rank and file, frontline postal workers. They take pride in their work. They've got a leader there who doesn't take any pride in anything other than helping Donald Trump. He's a disgrace. But you know what? We are relentlessly holding them accountable. But it really, one of the best ways to alleviate anxiety, Mark, about vote by mail is to make a plan to get there early. If you live in, Arizona, voting starts September the 14th. And in North Carolina, I think it's September the 4th. I mean, like you can get out there and do this early. And that's exactly what we're doing. We have a decided vote by mail advantage in places like Florida and Arizona and North Carolina because we've been hustling, we've been organizing, we've been educating, and we're going to continue to do that. You're going to hear me relentlessly say, make a plan to vote. And I'm going to say it tomorrow when I see you at the rally in Washington, D.C. Make a plan to vote and do it soon because our democracy depends on it.
Tom will be joining us tomorrow at the March on Washington, tomorrow, August 28th, the anniversary of the Great March on Washington, and the 65th anniversary of the martyrdom of Emmett Till. That was Black Lives Matter, even though it wasn't called that, but that sparked the modern civil rights movement, of course. And here in this very week, we have Jacob Blake. But before I ask you something else about Wisconsin, though, Tom, let me run one other thing by you. The Trump is targeting Black men with the help of his social media minions, be they Russian robots, trolls, or regular trolls, what have you. They're trying to target African-American men through a myriad of ugly ways. What message would you give to African-American men, to Black men, as to why it's important to support the Biden-Harris ticket?
Our lives depend on it. Our jobs depend on it. Our livelihoods and racial justice depends on it. Donald Trump promised, he asked the question 4 years ago, Mark, you'll remember this. He asked the question to African Americans, not just African American men, but African American voters. He did it in Detroit, he did it in Flint, he did it in North Carolina and elsewhere. What do you have to lose? Well, here we are 4 years later. We know the answer to that question. Look at 180,000 lives, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. Job loss. The unemployment rate of African Americans is almost double now what it was at the end of the Obama administration. Job loss. You should see look at the budget request of this president and the zeroing out of programs that have been designed to help minority communities. So he is specifically zeroing out these programs that have been a lifeline for small business owners of color. And that's what he continues to do. Look at in the racial justice context, he just pours fuel on the fire regularly. What did he refer to African nations? I'm not going to use the word he referred to. It was the last four words were whole, and the first four were, you know what, begins with an S. That's his lack of respect. And that is why we must move forward. And Joe Biden has a very aggressive plan to build back better and to build back through a racial equity lens, because this pandemic has laid bare racial and ethnic health disparities. It's laid bare the wide gulf between the haves and the have-nots. And through our initiatives like Chop It Up, where we're having these authentic conversations with African-American men, Seat at the Table, where we're having authentic conversations with African-American women and really talking about what we need to do. We know we need to do even more, but we're proud of what we have done. And the proof is in the pudding. The Affordable Care Act, one of the most significant beneficiaries of the ACA were African Americans, because African Americans were disproportionately among the ranks of the uninsured. And this is a president who wants to do away with the ACA. This is a president now who's rekindling birtherism in the context of Kamala Harris. That's unconscionable. And we now know the answer to this. What do you have to lose? All of what I've just discussed. And that is why this is such a reckoning right now. And that's why you're going to see the likes of Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, everybody coming together in these final 69 days to make sure that everybody gets out there to vote. Because Donald Trump is hoping that, is hoping that our communities stay home. He's hoping that we just throw up our hands and say, nobody's doing anything. What he's really trying to do is tell you there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans on issues that you care about. That's the real message I think he's trying to communicate to African-American men, so that they will stay home. And the differences couldn't be more stark. I mean, they haven't even mentioned the name Jacob Blake at the Republican National Convention because they can't. It would his base, his far right base, would have a conniption if he expressed any sort of empathy for Jacob Blake or Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, or Emmett Till. And as John Lewis said, Emmett Till was my George Floyd. He was my Breonna Taylor. What are we going to do about this now? We got to get out there and vote. And I've been so inspired, Mark, when I went to peaceful protests here in DC. I was so inspired by young African-American leaders, men and women alike, who understood we're making the connection between the injustices of today and the need to vote. They were understanding what John Lewis said, which is that the right to vote is the most important nonviolent tool we have to form a more perfect union. So I hope folks will get out there, and I hope folks will remember what Donald Trump said to them in 2016 and remember the losses that the African-American community has endured and the positive vision, the inclusive vision of Joe Biden. He will have a cabinet that looks like America. He will have leadership that focuses on every zip code. And that's why I hope people get out there, because vote like your life depends on it, because frankly, it does.
He already has a running mate. It looks like America. And I know we all agree that was a great choice. Tom, I know you got to go. Folks, Tom Perez will be with us tomorrow at the anniversary of the March on Washington at Lincoln Memorial. For those who in the Washington metropolitan area want to join, it'll be the first socially distant March on Washington in history. We'll provide masks and gloves. If you don't have them, we'll be doing temperature checks. Want to mention Tom, too, was Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. So he knows a lot about these kinds of cases. We need that George Floyd police reform legislation to get through. All Mitch McConnell wants to do is confirm judges. It's already passed the House. So there's a lot more that needs to be done. Tom, thank you so much. I know we're sports fans. Never, I guess you agree with me, never thought we see the day when the NBA and MLB and even Major League Soccer has done what it's done in the past 24 hours. But I'm sure you'd agree it's an historic moment.
I texted my friends in Milwaukee Bucks leadership because we worked with them on the convention. They were really important partners. We were going to have the convention in the Fiserv Forum, the home of the Milwaukee Bucks. I texted them this morning to say, never been prouder of you. And athletes leading like this is so critically important moving forward.
Tom Perez, folks, the chair of Democratic Party, the DNC. Tom, thank you so much, man. Okay, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Mall.
I look forward to seeing you and so many others tomorrow as we march for justice.
Amen. Thank you, Tom.